Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to the Rustic Von Lodge, the kitchen to the Rustic Von Lodge. And today, we're going to be talking about June on the Range. That's right, June on the Range returns. It's the sequel, it's June on the Range 2. So, June on the Range, a reading event where we read Westerns. That's right, Westerns, a genre of fiction that not many people read anymore. And so, in June, I invite you to join me and some fantastic co-hosts to read Westerns for June on the Range. So Westerns, of course, at one time, was a Western, the Western genre was huge. It was gigantic. I mean, there were so many Westerns printed. I mean, millions. There probably have been millions of Westerns printed over the years. Incredibly popular genre, particularly so in the United States. And I think a lot of people read Westerns in other parts of the world. Again, probably not as many as they used to. It used to be huge, Westerns were. And Westerns were big right up through the 1970s or into the 1970s. Start to die off quite a bit into the 1980s. And then it was finally massacred right around that time as a genre. But, 30s, 40s, 50s, in the 1950s, Westerns were huge, right up through the 1960s. And like I said, into the 70s. Westerns were really, really popular. And you can go to any bookstore or any place that they sold paperback books, and you can always get new Westerns, always. As a genre, it's much diminished. But, Westerns are still being printed. People still read Westerns. Usually older people like myself, but Westerns are still being written. They are still being printed, just, not as many as there used to be. And so in June, every June, from now until infinity, or at least, for as long as I'm around on BookTube, every June we will resuscitate the Westerns and celebrate the Westerns as a genre. And coming up on June 2023, I'm thinking about what I'm going to read. Now, I did bring some books, some Westerns up to the lodge here. I brought a handful, and I'm going to go through this handful of books that I brought up and see if I could find something that looks like it would be something I'm going to want to read for June on the Range. So hold on just a minute. I left those books over there. I'll go get them. I'll be right back with you. Tarnation! Well, maybe I brought a couple of handfuls. So hold on just 1 minute here. Just 1 minute, my friends. Let me just So, listen, it's like I said, they printed a ton of these, so it's kind of hard to choose, from amongst all the Westerns you can get. That's one good thing about the Western genre. Like I said, they printed 1 billion of them. So if you're looking for Westerns from June on the Range, you should be able to find a few. I have found used bookstores and eBay, things like that. Easy place to find Westerns if you're interested. So, last year on June on the Range, when I did this, I didn't have any weekly themes. And because I figured, I just wanted to introduce people to this genre. I wanted people to read Westerns, and I wanted them to, not have a difficult time choosing. They could just pick up any old Western book that they wanted. This year, it's kind of like that, but this is the rules. Or this is what I'm doing. It's not really the rules. You could do anything you want, but I'm saying aim for 4 Westerns for June. 4. If you could pull it off. You don't have to. You could read 1 if you want, or 2, or 12. But I'm saying aim for 4. because they're, they tend to be like Bitter Guns. Bitter Guns is real small. Westerns tended to be on the smaller side. There are exceptions, like last year, I read a pretty long Western. I read Lonesome Dove, which is, the greatest Western ever, so I'm happy that I read that. But I read that on the tail end and into the next month. But for June on the Range, Westerns tend to be on the smaller side. I'm thinking 4 is okay. And so here's my recommendation. I'm saying read, if you can, one book by Zane Grey, one book by Louis L'Amour, and a couple other books by people that aren't Zane Grey and Louis L'Amour. Now, this is why I'm saying that. Zane Grey was probably the first superstar Western writer, one of America's best-selling writers at one time, Zane Grey. And I cleverly, when I was working with Roger and coming up with picks for Roger's Cheap Old Book Club, for June, knowing it was June on the Range, Roger and I came up with this. This is The Lone Star Ranger from Zane Grey. So I'm thinking every June I should read something from Zane Grey, and this year for Roger's Cheap Old Book Club, it's going to be The Lone Star Ranger, one of his more popular novels. It's available in the public domain, so you can get it for free, just like all of Roger's books in Roger's Cheap Old Book Club. But Zane Grey, I figure you can't have a June on the Range without Zane Grey. So yeah, Zane Grey. And Louis L'Amour is probably, well, he's definitely the best-selling Western writer of all time. He wrote a ton of Westerns, Louis L'Amour. And so there's a lot of books to choose from. And I don't know exactly which one I'm going to be reading this year, but I'm thinking it's going to be this one just because I like the movie cover. Now, a major motion picture, The Man Called Noon from Louis L'Amour. This is a Louis L'Amour book that I don't think I've read. It's kind of hard to remember with Louis L'Amour because he wrote so many darn books. I don't think I've read this one, and I have the movie copy with a bunch of pictures from the film. Never has the 1870s looked more like the 1970s than it does here on the back of this paperback. But yeah, The Man Called Noon. I'll probably read that since, I haven't read it probably. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be reading a Louis L'Amour. Maybe that one. We'll see. But as you can see, I have a few piles of possibilities. I mean, there are lots of different writers you could choose from. A bunch of really, really good ones like Will Henry. I've got The Hunting of Tom Horn here. Will Henry was a really, really good Western writer. So you've got Will Henry here. What else do I have in this huge pile? We have Lee Florin here. Here's another Louis L'Amour, To Tame a Land. I'm pretty sure I've read that one, but I'm not exactly sure. Look, it's another Zane Grey. Zane Grey wrote an awful lot. So, Wayne D. Overholser was a very popular Western writer. I did read a Wayne D. Overholser book last year. This is Hearn's Valley, an old classic paperback of Hearn's Valley from Wayne D. Overholser. Ray Hogan was another popular Western writer. I've got Soldier and Buckskin here. Will I read this? Heck, maybe. Got a couple Overholsers here, but one that I think I'm going to want to get to. I don't remember if I got to Luke Short last year. Did I read Luke Short? I don't think I did. So this is Marauder's Moon. I've got a few books from Luke Short. I really like Luke Short an awful lot. Got Marauder's Moon. I might read that. I got Vetchel Howard. Here's another Ray Hogan. This is Three Cross from Ray Hogan. I got a bunch of Ray Hogan. What's hanging out up here? John D. Nesbitt is here with Trouble at Redstone. This is from Leisure Books, and this is from the period when Leisure Books did terrible photoshopped covers. They stopped, reproducing the old painted covers, the old pulpy painted covers, and started doing really terrible photoshopped covers. That was towards the end of Leisure. And this is a Signet double. Ray Hogan had a bunch of doubles. And this is from the Shawn Starbuck series. This is Shawn Starbuck number 7, Brandon's Posse, and the Hell Merchant. That's Shawn Starbuck number 8. They used to have a bunch of Western series. You can go and, you can go to the local spinner rack where all the paperbacks were and catch up with your favorite character every couple months or however often they were published. Nelson Nye, I like Nelson Nye an awful lot. This is another double. This is a double from Leisure Books, Texas Gun and Gringo. More Wayne D. Overholser, West of the Rimrock and Draw or Drag. But one writer I like an awful lot is T.V. Olson. This is Bonner Stallion. This is one I was thinking about reading last year but didn't. So I've got this one. There were a bunch of them. Now, one Western that I was thinking of reading this year because I've been wanting to read this one. This is Dog. This is by Mary Doria Russell. And she wrote at least a couple Westerns that are pretty well regarded. This is about Doc Holliday, and this focuses on Doc Holliday. But she also did one about the gunfight at OK Corral, which unfortunately I don't have. But I do have Doc. I've been wanting to read Doc because I've been hearing great things about it. So maybe I'll read Doc this year. Maybe. We'll see. Another one that I wanted to read last year but didn't is Larry D. Sweezy, Lost Mountain Pass. Now this is number 1 in the Trusty Dawson U.S. Deputy Marshal series. This is a newer Western. Now, this is one of those weird things that publishers are doing now. This is not your regular mass market paperback size. Like, this is a mass market paperback. This is a mass market paperback, but this one's like wider. It's like this big wide paperback. Why don't you just do a mass market paperback for this series? I mean, mass markets are awesome, but I guess not everybody thinks so. But as you can see, I've got a few books to choose from here, I mean, here's another Louis L'Amour. This is actually from the Sackett series. This is number 8. So I probably won't read this one because I got a lot of other Sacketts to read. Here's The English Horses from William A. Lucky. This is another photograph for a cover, which is lame. But, I've got a few. This is Action at Alameda by Ray Golden. I don't think this is the Alameda where I was born. I was born in Alameda, California. I don't think that this Action is from that Alameda, but it might be. Ooh, it's another Louis L'Amour. This is Flint. It's Flint. Maybe I'll read Flint this year. So many possibilities for June on the Range. So, like I said, this is just to remind folks. I know that there are a lot of folks watching my Dopey channel who weren't around last year for June on the Range. But if you're here now, join along and read some Westerns. Like I said, I'm saying go for 4, but you can read what you want. It's up to you. But yeah, okay, I guess that's all I got to say for the day. Join us for June on the Range. I will catch you next time.